AI seems like it's performing actual magic these days, right? I mean, from writing poetry to diagnosing diseases, it's easy to start thinking its power is totally limitless. But here's the thing. Every magic trick has a secret, and every power has a boundary. Today, we're going to pull back that curtain to see what's really going on.
So all of this really begs the central question. Is what we're seeing from AI true intelligence, or is it maybe just a masterful illusion? Well, let's take a look under the hood and find out together.
So, here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll dive into what I'm calling the AI illusion. Then we'll get into its biggest limitations. We're talking about the data it uses, the context it completely misses, and that big question about creativity. We'll also touch on just how fragile these systems can be before we land on what might be the most critical piece of the whole puzzle, our role in all of this.
Look, there's no denying that AI's abilities are absolutely impressive, but they are not limitless. They operate within very specific, very real boundaries, and that's what we're here to uncover, starting with the biggest one of them all.
Okay, so the first and honestly the most important boundary is data. It really all comes down to how an AI processes information, which, and this is crucial, is fundamentally different from the way you and I think.
So here it is, the key distinction. Humans, we're wired to understand the why, the cause, the reason, the deeper meaning. And AI, on the other hand, is just an absolute master at finding the what. It doesn't know a cat is a furry, independent creature. Not really. It just knows that pixels arranged in a certain way have an incredibly high statistical chance of being linked to the label cat. It's pattern matching on a massive scale, not genuine understanding. And that's where the problem starts. See, an AI is only as good as the data you feed it. So if you give it incomplete data or biased data or information that's just plain old bogus, it's going to spit out flawed results. And this isn't just some tiny technical glitch. It means the system can generate some seriously unreliable, even dangerously misleading conclusions out there in the real world.
This leads us right into our next boundary, what I call the context blind spot. Because even if the data is perfect, an AI can still fail, and fail spectacularly. Why? Because it has basically zero grasp of social, emotional, or cultural context. It just doesn't get the bigger picture.
This quote from the source material really hits the nail on the head. An AI can follow its programming perfectly, its logic can be totally sound, but it can still arrive at a conclusion that is just completely out of line with human values. It simply doesn't get our unspoken social rules, which really highlights this huge gap between pure logic and actual real-world awareness.
Just think about sarcasm. Somebody posts a comment like, "Oh great, another software update. Just what I needed." What does the AI do? It sees the words great and needed and identifies them as positive keywords. So it fires back with something totally sincere and helpful, like, "We're glad you're excited." It has completely missed the frustration, the tone, the entire human subtext. Logically consistent? Yes. Totally deaf? Absolutely. And that brings us to one of the hottest topics right now, generative AI. I mean, it creates this incredible art, it writes really compelling text, and that raises a massive question. Is it actually being creative, or is it doing something else entirely?
Well, what we see as creativity is really just a super advanced form of recombination. A generative AI crunches billions of data points, all of human creation essentially, and becomes an expert at remixing those patterns in new and interesting ways. But it doesn't have consciousness. It doesn't have intention. It's not trying to express an original idea. It's just running a ridiculously complex pattern matching program.
Think about it like this. Human creativity so often starts with a blank canvas, an idea, an emotion, an intention. We create something new from that. But AI generation, it never starts with a blank canvas. Its canvas is the gigantic data set of human work it was trained on. So it's not really creating, it's reassembling.
So, beyond these big conceptual limits, AI systems also have some very practical, structural weaknesses. We have to talk about how fragile they can be, because just relying on them without understanding these risks, well, that's a serious mistake.
These systems are surprisingly brittle. They're vulnerable to what are called adversarial attacks, where someone can change just a few pixels in an image and completely trick an AI into thinking a cat is a car. They face data breaches and system failures just like any other piece of software. But maybe the biggest risk is the human one. As we start relying on automation more and more, our own oversight goes down, and that lets potentially huge errors just slip right through the cracks.
Okay, so we've looked at the boundaries of data, of context, of creativity, and fragility. So, what does that leave us? It leads us to the most important conclusion of all.
our own irreplaceable role in this new AI-powered world. If there is just one thing you take away from all of this today, let it be this. AI is not a replacement for human thought. It is the most powerful tool we have ever created, period. And just like any tool, its value, its safety, it all depends on the person using it. It needs our context, our ethical judgment, and our oversight to have any chance of working the way it should.
And that leaves us with one last thought to chew on as we move forward. As this incredible tool gets more and more woven into the fabric of our lives, what is the one uniquely human skill, whether it's critical thinking or empathy or ethical judgment, that we should draw a line in the sand for and decide this is something we will never, ever automate?